Hi there, I'm Cliff Mims, and welcome to Talking Ed. Today, I'm interviewing Tim Scott, and he's the author of a new book that just recently came out called The Dragon King. And of all the interviews I've done with children's authors, this is absolutely going to be my favorite interview so far.
Thank you.
Nothing against all the other, I think, 10 other people that I've interviewed so far. Tim and I just went to college together, so he's one of my buddies, and I just think it's super cool that he started writing, and he's made the leap. He's thought about this for years. He had a full-time job, but he's made the leap into writing, and so he's going to talk about his book and then share some of his writing process with us. So, hi, Tim.
Hey.
Tell us a little bit about the book. Why would I want to read your book?
I would hope that you'd want to read it because it is a fun, fast-paced adventure for kids and for parents. It's a fun story about basically your neighbors next door that you think are regular, normal people, but in reality, they travel the world fighting dragons, keeping you from realizing that dragons are real and keeping the world safe. And then in the book, a secret that the grandfathers kept for 50 years suddenly becomes known and puts the whole world at peril. And only the Drake family can save it. And it's a fun story about a mom and a dad and kids that travel around and do fearless, amazing things. And I hope you like it.
You were telling me when we were off camera earlier, you designed this family the way you did on purpose. You care to?
Yeah, so I hope it's a book that that ideally a family would enjoy together, but any individual part can pick it up and read it. There's a mom and a dad that are both heroic. There's a teenage girl and a 10-year-old boy. And so hopefully there's a character in there that every person, regardless of their age or where they are in life, will engage with and relate to. And see themselves, jumping into the story. So there's even a grandfather. So it's, there's something for everyone.
One of the things I mentioned to you is when I started looking at it, saw the title, I saw the cover, and I was like, okay, I'm an elementary school teacher. I've read all the Harry Potters. I've read all the, and so I was expecting something to be similar to that. And it actually thought, oh, Tim, why did you do this? But then I told you on page 1,
right?
You surprised me. And I was like, oh yeah, that's not the case at all. It kind of, well, not kind of, it's distinguishable from those other books. But I'm guessing you did that on purpose also.
Yeah, that was intentional. So I'm not the biggest fan of the fantasy genre. I don't like superhero movies. I think people with superpowers, that's a cheat, right? Like they're not real. And so what I wanted to do was, even though there's dragons, just introduce this family that fights dragons as if dragons is the only abnormal thing about their world. And that it's just it's just a Tuesday. Oh, but they got to go fight dragons. And how would they do that without magic and without crazy weapons or superpowers? Just do it. And try to do that in such a way that jumped into the story right away and was fast-paced and rollicking and just didn't let up on the action. And that was my intention, is to not get too deep into myth or magic or things like that. Just have some fun and make it really, really fast-paced.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this book, you've planned this to be a series.
I do. Yeah. I'm working on the second one right now. Yeah.
I talked over you. Would you repeat yourself?
Yeah. Yes. It's at least a trilogy. I'm hoping to have the second book in the series available by the end of the school year. Working diligently on that. And I am excited to see where the Drake family goes because I really like spending time with them.
That was actually my next question. Who's your favorite character?
Boy, that's a great question. I love the 10-year-old son, Jake. And he's my favorite because a lot of the theme of the book is about not being afraid, living fearlessly, overcoming fear. You know, personally for me, you know, I wanted to write for decades, but never did because I was afraid of 700 different things that could happen if I quit a job and told people I was writing. And so much about my life has been influenced by my fears. And the 10-year-old boy Jake in the story, man, he personifies the fearless individual. Like, he is not afraid of anything. He believes in his family, and he believes in himself, and he just dives forward and pushes through no matter what. Plus he's funny. And so fearless and funny, I mean, that's how I want people to see me, right? Fearless and funny. So he's my favorite character. And with the dog being right below Jake, because the dog is also fearless and funny, you know?
Yeah. As I shared earlier, our oldest has read it, and I think the dog is his favorite character, but he likes Jake a lot too.
That's awesome.
And that's one of the things I want to assure the viewers is it really is a good book. There's lots of good funny stuff to it. And then I found, you mentioned a theme a moment ago, but I found, and I actually haven't asked you this, so I don't know the answer here. Is it intended to have moral lessons built into it, or am I kind of superimposing?
No, it is. It is. And I wanted to do that deliberately, but with a light touch, if that makes sense. There's a couple of strong moral themes in it that I wasn't even aware of their depth until I was finished with it and went back and read it, you know, straight through doing a final edit. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't realize that theme was in there so much, you know? And so for sure, there's definitely a moral message to it that comes out pretty strongly. Yeah.
All right. And so, you made the leap. Let's talk about that real briefly. So you made the leap. You had full-time employment. You have a wife and a daughter, and you now are a full-time author. How did you come to that, and what's that like?
It's frightening, but it's amazing, but it's frightening, right? And so, you know, my wife and I, we were just at a point in our lives where I felt a desire of my heart and a push to be a writer and to share stories and to be involved in the lives of others through story. And I had always had a job and was always really pretty good at it. And it was safe and it was easy. And one day I just asked myself, what am I afraid of? Like, so if this doesn't work, what's the downside? I go get a job. Yeah. I mean, why would I not try to do this and to live the life I've imagined for myself? And not in terms of money or reward, but more in terms of the reward that comes from sharing what I have inside of me and trying to make a connection with people through story. And to do so in faith and say, you know what, this will work. And if I'm just going to step out into it. And so I told my employer that I was leaving, to much gnashing of teeth and, you know, and begging, please no, but stepped out in September. And so since September of 2017, write all the time, and substitute teach here and there where I can be around some kids that, you know, I'm hopefully writing for and stay close to them. And it's been amazing. It's very challenging and very frightening, but it's a journey that my wife and I are so happy to be on. And I can't wait to see where it continues to go. I saw a quote just this week that said, when you think you've gone as far as you can, don't turn back, because you didn't come this far to stay right here. Right. So I'm going to keep going. And yeah, and I think it's great. It's frightening, but it's great.
All right. So I don't want to get into what the surprise is, but there's a great twist. And I was asking you, I was, you know, complimenting you. My son also really loved that. But you were talking about it was not easy. So talk about your writing process a little bit, but especially moving towards what was it like? What was your process to come up with that
Totally
great
good.
twist?
So my writing process, the easier part for me is kind of the outline and the steps of the story. So it's like I always start by saying, okay, I don't want to try to write anything down until I know where this thing's going to go and how I'm going to loosely get there. And so I try to begin with the ending and then sketch out the different steps, and I put them on index cards and I put them up on my wall, right? And then I kind of walk through and move them around. Well, as I was doing that and kind of walking through the steps of the story, I realized that the first ending I had was terrible. So let's do what the second ending is. Well, that was bad too. And what's the third ending? And so literally the surprise that you talk about is like the 8th or 9th iteration of that scene, like how just completely structurally how that was going to go. And I don't think I could have been able to do that without my process being that I see the steps and I walk through the structure of the story, almost like the bones of the house before I start putting the walls up and sort of start decorating it. And so doing that allows me to be flexible enough to say, and to see the story linearly, can I say that? In a linear fashion, enough to be able to see the flaws or the mistakes in that, or to be able to say, oh, you know what? It would be really cool if I took this and put it at the ending too. If I did this around, and then once I have that outlined, I'll sit down, I'll take an index card off the wall and I'll put it next to my pad of paper. And I'm like, all right, I'm writing chapter 2 today. And then I write it out and then put it back on the wall. Okay, I'm writing chapter 3 today, write it all out. So
fascinating.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time, so I'm going to tell viewers a little bit. So Tim is available if you want to Skype with him or teleconference with him somehow. He can talk extensively about his writing process if you wanted him to share that with your students.
Mm-hmm.
But he can also obviously talk about the book and engage with the kids. Tim is a great storyteller in person.
Thanks.
And so I think you'd find him to be a really great guest. And I think your students would really enjoy it. Tim, tell them where they can get the book and how they can contact you.
Absolutely. If you go to my website, which is www.timothywscott.com, you can link to Amazon to get the book there. You can send me an email to get in contact with me. I would love to Skype with your class. I'd love to come meet with your class. I love talking to kids and about any number of things. There's some additional resources out there on that website. There's a free short story you can download that's kind of some backstory into the book. But yeah, www.timothywscott.com.
Okay, very good. Well, I really, really, really give this high praise. It's so good. I have a 16-year-old son. I asked him to read it as a favor to me, and he did so. And now he's wanting to get all of his friends to read it. And he begged me to ask Tim for hints about what's in book 2. So I have some of that information, but I've got
awesome.
a 16-year-old that you have motivated with this book. So I don't know if you can give it much more praise than that, Tim. Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, very good. That's going to wrap up this edition of Talking Ed. I'm Cliff Mims, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks.